Okay, we'll go next now to Ralph Russo, Associated Press.
Afternoon, Tim. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ralph.
I was sort of eavesdropping on your earlier news conference in person, seeing some tweets. You had mentioned we're not going to use Power Five, we're not going to use Group of Five. Now, in practical sense, that those terms don't really mean anything anymore. But I'm wondering from maybe a philosophical, strategic sense, what that means about how you're going to approach this job. It seems like for so long, the American has sort of been, and I understood this, chasing something. So if you can get into a little more about what you said there, what that means about how you're going to approach the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I said, Ralph, is those things won't come out of my mouth. And I think that is a reality. I'm not going to ignore the fact that they exist and they're in the narrative, around collegiate athletics and especially college football on a daily basis. But, I think the position of the American Athletic Conference is well known and supported by a lot of the relationships and the media agreement and the investment that's been made. And it's positioned where it's positioned. It won't stay there forever if we don't accelerate and do some things differently. It was Power Five, then it was Power Two. And I think for me, I just can't keep up, with any of it. And when I look at college football, to me, college football is college football. Are there different levels of competition and levels of play? Of course there are. Is there financial disparity? We know that. We don't control a lot of that stuff. But what I will try to focus on with the staff and with the schools will be, all right, what do we control? Like, what is the stomach for taking some big swings? That honestly, Ralph, was a hugely important part of the interview process. I really pressed to know more about how interested the presidents and the membership was in doing things differently. And I feel great about, their interest in trying some of these things down the road.
Okay, we'll take the next one from Gary Smith, the New Orleans Advocate, please.
Hi, Tim. In basketball, the top teams in the league this year there's really no other way to put it, have kind of been ravaged in the transfer portal. What can you do and what can the league do in the future to slow that down, or is there anything you can do to prevent that from happening in the future?
Yeah, we hope to. And I do think that is a reality of where we are as a conference. And it's challenging because you have a lot of great student athletes coming to the conference in a variety of sports. So the cycle and how it works of investing and developing in these student athletes and then, losing them to the transfer portal or, to an opportunity that may be more significant in NIL, it's challenging. So again, you can't stop it, but I think what you can do is, think about things like I said in my opening remarks today about what are the conference-wide NIL opportunities? Like, rather than this just being about a free-for-all, quite frankly, of every man for himself, the top 1% benefiting, what can be done as a conference to develop partnerships, to generate new resources, to provide a conference-wide NIL opportunity to literally every student athlete. Like the foundation of what we do will be control what we control, right? We'll get aggressive and proactive and disruptive, but some of these things we need to focus on what's happening and then how we can change it for our own enterprise.
Okay, we'll take the next one from David Richmond, please. The Sports Objective in Greenville.
Hey, Commissioner. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I am biased because I think we have a great chancellor in Dr. Philip Rogers, but also the reason I'm reaching out today, obviously, is not only to welcome you, but also as far as American, when you say disruptive, I've heard that several times. I really like that. What does that mean to you?
It means to me is the status quo. I just don't think, Dave, is acceptable any longer. The foundation of the business that I came up in when I was a young media executive and was part of, some of these historic media deals that, still are around today was, it was sort of clear cut. There were media rights and investment in exchange for the product. But now what's changing is that environment is totally different. It's not just about, broadcast anymore. I mean, you see the elevation of the streaming business. Like, there are more options for people with live sports content than there ever have been before. And that's exciting. So that's number one. And, naturally we have a long-term and a great agreement with ESPN on a going forward basis. Otherwise, like, it's really interesting to me to see what's happening in private equity. Private equity has been heavily investing in sports for an extended period of time already. And it's like circling the neighborhood in college sports, but it hasn't parked its car in anyone's driveway yet. I think that's inevitable. And I do think that anyone who has, rights and content and live sports will have the opportunity to tap into that space.
Okay, we'll go next to Dan Tortora, Wake Up Call DT, please.
Congratulations, Tim, first and foremost.
Thank you.
When you look at, you talked about taking big swings for this conference moving forward. What does that look like? And is there kind of a phase of, like, what are those swings that you're looking to potentially take? And is there a phase of how you're going to go about it?
Well, naturally, time, I think, is the enemy on everything in the business, Dan. Like, you can't move fast enough. And collegiate athletics, I think, has been a place where my experience, even on a campus, was this way. The pace is a little bit of a challenge sometimes. And what's happened recently is change has outpaced governance, which is why we're stuck in some situations that we really need to resolve. What does it look like? I think it will start with trying to prioritize what the most impactful swings can be and what we can accelerate, get done in a short period of time, which requires building consensus. Like, the one thing about collegiate athletics is you have a room of 15 institutions, diverse backgrounds and points of view. It's going to start with building consensus. But, I do think private equity is an opportunity. I do think innovating partnerships in sponsorship and naming rights and sort of things that cascade across the conference is something that can be done. I actually think the evolution of the postseason in college football is encouraging because there's more access and there's more slots, but there's 134 institutions playing Division I football. And as the CFP continues to grow and evolve, I think there's room for more. So there are some of these things in particular that are front of mind with me right now, Dan.
And when you look at the membership and the expansion that has happened recently here, just what you can say about what these institutions kind of bring together, if you see any parallels that tether them together for this American Athletic Conference, and what that membership looks like stepping forward as a representation of your model that you are looking to have.
Dan, I pushed really hard during the interview process. I was very direct about a few things in particular, and commitment was a big one. Because naturally, if you're going to invest of yourself physically, emotionally, and otherwise into a role like this, which I'm going to, then you want to understand where everybody stands. And the thing I loved about the response was it was not an elephant in the room. I walked out of that room feeling very confident about commitment. And I'm also not naive to think that the shifts and the expansion will not continue in collegiate athletics. But I do think there's a window ahead of us to do some things differently and, quite frankly, resource this conference in a way where the members don't need to leave.
We'll go next to Leo Haggerty, It's Sports Magazine, please.
Mr. Commissioner, congratulations on your appointment. And when you come to South Florida, lunch is on me at Bill Maher's Saloon. It's the best Cuban sandwich in town.
Well, all I need is a date and a time, and I'm there for that sandwich. So count on it.
I'm on it. Real quick, everyone knows that football is the engine that drives the train. When you look at the AAC, what is your strategic plan to enhance the visibility and viability of not just football, but the entire conference moving forward in a very fluid and unstable environment?
Well, I think you're accurate in that the focus in the industry has been, especially in the media space, about football. And at the same time, if you look back at the original mission, right, of collegiate athletics, that's not what the whole thing has been designed to do. It's been designed to provide education through sport, right? And that sounds great, but it is true. That was my own personal experience. Going forward, football has to be a vital and important part of what we do, because the reality is if we can maximize resources and investment around football, it supports everything else everybody is doing on campus. Okay. I would argue that basketball is equally important. The profile, the visibility, like, what do we love about the NCAA tournament? We love the fact that a school like Fairleigh Dickinson up the street from where I grew up in New Jersey can make a run in the tournament 2 years ago. So, that's the part. Football has to be important because it will give us the ability to generate more resources for everything.
A quick follow-up. You talked about keeping everybody in the family. Is there room for expansion still in the AAC?
Nothing's off the table as it relates to that. I think that there's always room, but there has to be a criteria and there has to be, a specific way to evaluate and analyze what makes sense. For us, I can't tell you what that criteria is going to be today, but we're going to have it, and I'm not going to do it on my own. Like, this will be a combination of input from presidents, athletic directors, outside groups that I have had the ability to work with in my professional career to determine what makes sense. But there's room and nothing's off the table.
Thank you, Tim. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Matthew Bartlett from the Roost, please.
Hey, Tim. First off, congratulations. Second off, we touched a little bit about the landscape of college sports right now. The Americans turned over almost entirely in its membership in 15 years. What do you kind of see as the identity of this conference right now as you take over? And then what do you want the identity to be moving forward?
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. The things that attracted me to the conference there's a couple words like grit, resilience. Things have changed dramatically, like you said, but the conference has responded and reloaded, and it's done everything it's needed to do. But those things in particular attracted me to it. What should it be in the future? We want this conference to be known as the most innovative conference in collegiate athletics. And innovate's an overused word sometimes, but elevating the enterprise to do things differently, to take big swings, and naturally that's going to require the same factors: grit, resilience, taking some chances on some things. I'm convinced that the group that I met with that hired me into this job is ready to do that, and I'm excited about it.
Okay, next we'll go to Amanda Kristovich, Front Office Sports, please.
Hey, nice to meet you. Congrats on the new role. So you spoke a little bit about private equity. I want to ask you about another potentially controversial idea in college sports. Also, since you said everything is on the table. So give me your initial thoughts on athlete unionization and the employment model. Obviously, the commissioners may not be the ones to decide whether, it could be a court, but yeah, just off the top, what are your thoughts on that, and especially FBS college sports?
Yeah. Hi, Amanda. Thanks for your congrats. It's nice to meet you too. So I'm very familiar with what's happening. I think that every day you wake up around collegiate athletics, there's another conversation or debate or more dialogue about something, and it's evolving. I'm very familiar with the Dartmouth situation, and that the team has essentially been classified and designated employees. I'm actually curious to know what the student athletes in this conference think about this. Do student athletes want to be employees? The reality of the employment model is we all know what's being discussed, right? So employees get hired and they get paid and they provided benefits, and they have a responsibility to deliver certain factors, certain things in a job based on certain KPIs. And if they succeed, they grow. If they don't succeed, maybe they get fired. Right. So there is more to this than meets the eye. But to me, I'm familiar with what's going on at Dartmouth. I'm anxious to learn more about this whole thing in general. But I specifically want to know what our student athletes think about it. Like, do they want to be employees? I don't think anybody knows the answer to that.
We'll go back to Ralph Russo for Associated Press.
My one follow-up for you, Tim. First of all, you're definitely buying lunch when we get together.
I owe you lunch for how many years now? Is it like a 2? So
it's really, it's rolling over. Seriously though, like there's sort of I don't know if a narrative is the right word here, but there's been a lot of talk about how this is a good time to get out of college athletics because there is so much uncertainty about college athletics. I'm interested in not just you, but I've been talking to other people who are getting into college athletics at the time. Not that you were completely removed from it. You were sort of on the peripheral of it for a while. Why are you coming back to college athletics at a time when it seems like many smart people are deciding I've had enough of this?
I can't figure out if that was an insult or not, Ralph, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt today. All right. it's the right question because you do see quite a bit of that. And, I had a quick exchange with a former coach that was on the staff at Rutgers as an assistant that was a head coach in college up to this past year that left for a coordinator job in the NFL and asked the same question. And I know for some on the front lines, for coaches, like there are stressors in the business for coaches, athletic directors, student athletes that I think have taken some people maybe to the breaking point. I know from being an athletic director and being on a campus how hard it was then. I think it's much harder now. But I think during times of transformation and when it's dynamic and you're not sure and it's uncertain, I think there are opportunities in that. So to me, the reason I came to it and not away from it is I feel like it's a great intersection of all the diverse experiences I've had in and around the industry. And I think this conference is really, really well positioned to lead in that in the future and of what they do, not only as a conference, but across collegiate athletics. So, I mean, to each his own, but I think in times of transformation, there's more opportunity than meets the eye.
Thanks, Tim. Good luck.
Thanks, Ralph. Appreciate you.
Okay, next we'll go to Heather Diddich, please, ESPN.
Hello. I wanted to ask you to follow up on the comment you made about the college football playoff, of course. And do you have an idea of what is the right number and how do you feel about the Americans' place in the CFP moving forward and the expanded version and as those talks continue about the debates between 12 and 14?
Hi, Heather. Good to see you. On the CFP, I would reiterate what I said. I think that it's moving in the right direction because expansion was something on everyone's mind. Access is something on everyone's mind. And the fact that there are more opportunities for more and the fact that we have access to continue, as part of it, I think are all good things. Our coaches need to be able to look kids in the eye and explain to them that based on certain results, we can compete for a national championship. I think that's all good stuff. But beyond that, I think there's room for more. And when I say room for more, maybe it's not what the right number is for the CFP. I don't know off the top of my head because I haven't started the job yet what that number is. But what I do know is if you look at how many institutions are playing Division I football, there's room for more beyond the CFP. There's postseason opportunities that don't exist that could be created to enhance the postseason or complement the postseason and the bowl season. So I'm not sure what the magic number is. I'm excited to go with Mike, who invited me to join him for the meetings in 2 weeks. I hope to see you there and really just get in the room and listen and learn and understand it a little bit better because it does have the ability to move the entire industry. So I think everybody in that room tearing down the walls and having transparent conversations is never been more important. Like it's not personal, but we have to remember we're acting on behalf of hundreds of thousands of other people that don't get to be in that room.
Okay, we'll go next to Jonah Dillon, Memphis Commercial Appeal, please.
Thanks. Hey, Tim. Nice to virtually meet you. Apologies if this has been addressed. I joined a little bit late, but I'm just curious how you go about, obviously, with conference realignment. You never know when it's going to kind of pop off. And there are some programs, Memphis is obviously one of them, that have been kind of trying to position themselves to maybe get into a different conference. I'm curious how you approach those conversations now with those schools about, wanting them to stay and be proud of this conference and to be here.
Well, nice to meet you too, Jonah. So the conference, the conversations are going to start to unfold in real time. I've already had a couple, and my job will be to listen first and foremost. What I'll do is I'm going to be with all of you on this call and everyone in the conference. I'm going to be very transparent about what we're doing. I'll be transparent with presidents and athletic directors about where we're headed as a conference and why this is the right place to be. And naturally, I need to understand their pain points. Like I think at every campus and every university, they may be dealing with different dynamics. So whether it's Memphis or UAB or anyone in the league, I plan to get in the room, look people in the eye, ask a lot of questions, but also understand why they think they need to position themselves for what's next. All we can control is what we can do for the current membership, to, again, make this a place that they don't need to leave.
Okay, we'll go back to a follow-up for Dan Tortora, please.
Tim, when you look at the decade that we've had the American Athletic Conference, what are some of those foundational pieces, those pillars that you think you can build off of that this conference has done right up to this point?
Well, first and foremost is this conference is resilient. Like, it has real grit about it. It's been faced with several challenges over the past decade, since it's physically existed, and it just continues to respond. And its resilience was one of the things that really attracted me to it. I do think it has a good foundation. I was convinced in the room that you have a membership that wants to do things differently. Like, they don't want to just be a conference that does it the same way as everyone else and hopes and prays that they can advance. They want to break glass and do things differently. So, that in particular is powerful, because having a strong foundation to come in on enables you to elevate the enterprise. Like, if you have to spend all your time building the foundation, then suddenly the pace can accelerate past you. Foundation is one. Taking the enterprise and elevating it is the next. And I won't repeat, but all the things I've mentioned where there are big swing opportunities, and innovation is possible in college sports. There's more there than meets the eye, but the foundation being in place, the great work that Mike did to continue to build it and shore it up, gives us the opportunity to immediately get on to elevating and innovating.
And a quick follow-up to that. How do you take a conference that has been poached so much, be it a student athlete, be it a coach, be it an institution in its entirety? How do you change that narrative to, instead of being a conference that's constantly looking at reloading, to be a conference that is consistently strong together? And like you said, that membership looking to do things innovative and break the ceiling. How do you keep them locked in together instead of having to find different pieces to fill voids when those happen?
Some steps have already been taken. I think the ESPN agreement is a great example. I worked at ABC Sports for years. I worked closely with the executives at ESPN. I worked on a variety of programming agreements together with them. And what I know is they're making investment in product that they believe in. And if you look at the value and the exposure within that agreement, it far separates itself in the industry right now. So I think that alone has already been taken, that step, which is that being in place for a long-term agreement provides some stability and some certainty across the conference about resources, revenue, exposure. And at the end of the day, exposure and creating more resources is really what our job is.
Okay, we'll take a follow-up from David Richmond, please.
Yes, Commissioner, talking about the TV contract, obviously I know it's not due like this year, but there are fans, I know with East Carolina, I don't know if there's other schools that are worried about with the likes of Cincinnati, Houston, Central Florida leaving the conference, that Commissioner Resco did a great job with ESPN and the deal, this past deal. But when it comes time to be renewed, how can the conference grow to the point that you don't have to worry about, say, going from a $7 million figure per school down to, some are saying maybe we'll go down to 2 million. I know that's all speculation.
Yeah, it is. The thing, I got to be honest with you, one of the things, Dave, that drew me back in as well, it was hard to resist the urge, was the debate. The best thing about collegiate athletics is the debate. I worked in pro sports. It does not feel the same way. And this is the stuff that really energizes me about the future. I don't think anybody can predict that. The reality is this bubble everybody's been talking about around sports rights that's going to burst, and the networks are going to band together and the streaming partners, they're going to pay less. That's never going to happen. Because the reality is sports is the last bastion of unscripted drama that exists. And it's valuable. It'll always be valuable. Our job is to put a great product on ESPN. So that's what we have to have our focus. And as it relates to getting to the next round of negotiations, whenever that is, my sense is you have to go to that table with something that's additive to what you had the first time around. And that's what we'll prepare to do.
Okay, we'll take one more from Leo Haggerty, please.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm going to follow up on that. When you come to the table for the next one, does streaming become an option?
Nothing's off the table. If you examine the industry and what's changed and where all the opportunities are, I'll have to tell a quick story. It involves one of our members too. It involves two of our members, Army and Navy. Okay. I worked at CSTV years ago when it became CBS College Sports, and we acquired the rights to the Army and the Navy game. And the beauty of it was they wanted to play their games. They wanted to kick off at a certain time of the day every Saturday when they played at home. And as a new network, we afforded them that opportunity. And it was a great relationship because it brought the tradition of Army Navy football, Saturdays at 12 noon at Army, Saturdays at 1:30 at Navy, back to the table. The beauty of streaming is I grew up in a world where games were set in certain time slots on networks. The beauty of streaming is it puts broad-based exposure to the institutions and gives them the flexibility to be able to deliver the product at the times that work best for their fans. So nothing's off the table. I actually think as the business continues to evolve, it gives the content providers with the product a great ability to be flexible and creative.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. We got to get in the habit of you guys calling me Tim, though. I think we got to get on a first name basis.
I'm not going to call you Tim till you give me permission. So if you give me permission, I will call you Tim.
I just did.
Thanks.
All right, we're just about at the end of our window. Does anyone have any final questions? If so, we'll give you a chance to raise your hand. And seeing none, Tim, thank you for your time, and thanks to the members of the media who joined today. Let us know if you need anything else.
Appreciate you all. Thanks for the time. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you.